I'm Jim Gordon, and I'm here at the offices of the Richmond Sentinel to bring you an important segment on the 2022 municipal elections here in Richmond. We've invited all the candidates to share with you, our viewers, why they're running and who they are, and why they want to serve the city of Richmond. Every candidate that accepted our invitation will be given the opportunity to share their views. Get to know the candidates here in Richmond and make an educated decision before you vote. Now, let's get started. Joining us now is Keefer Pelech. He's part of the Richmond Citizens Group. Keefer, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's do what we're doing with everybody. Tell us a bit about yourself and why you're choosing to run.
Well, I was born and raised in Richmond. I've lived here for pretty much my entire life. I was in New West for a couple of years, but I fought to get back here. So Richmond is really my home, my community. It's where I'd like to raise my family. And the reason I'm running is really because of that. With the cost of housing going higher and higher, it's harder and harder for families to stay in Richmond, to raise a family here. And there's a lot of things that we can actually do on the city level to help build more affordable housing, build more market, non-market options. And right now it's just not happening. So. Well,
you know, you're a younger guy. Let's keep talking about housing. You're in a generation now that I talk to a lot of people your age that kind of resign themselves, they may never be able to buy. Yes. How do you see you and your team at Richmond Citizens dealing with this affordability or attainability crisis?
Honestly, there's many ways, and we kind of have three big focuses on it.
Okay.
So one is we know that we can't do this alone. We got to work with different levels of government, but we also have to work with the development ecosystem in Richmond. So how do we work with people who are building housing to make sure that we are building more below market rental housing as well? Can we work with them to help with certain permitting issues to make sure that we can build more and get more of that rental stock? That's one really big one. Another one is just zoning. And honestly, this is one that affects every neighborhood in Richmond. How are we promoting more multifamily or family-friendly units in every neighborhood close to schools? Because we also have a huge enrollment issue in certain neighborhoods in Richmond where it's like a ghost town. You go there, right. The enrollment in the schools are dropping, and so it's harder to get services for those schools. But those are our community hubs. They should be accessible to families. That's a big one as well. And then the third thing is, can we help provide more city land for non-market solutions? Can we work with developers and not-for-profits to get specific needs-based housing for seniors, for people with accessibility needs, options that are just not necessarily going to happen in the free market.
Another big issue and a question we're asking everybody in that seat today is crime and safety, which is another growing concern. I think a lot of people say rightly so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like myself as well, Richmond is our home. It's where we work, where we live. We want to feel safe in our own neighborhoods. And I hate to bring it back to housing, but honestly, a lot of crime comes from people who are in places of instability, and getting them housing first is a really big thing for that. Also making sure that we have service providers who can stay in Richmond, have the space for them to operate here to make sure that people are receiving the services that they need. That's a huge part of safety. Another one is just having vibrant communities where people live, where they look out for each other. And if you have a neighborhood where you don't see kids on the street, you don't. It's harder to walk around because there's no sidewalks.
Sure.
They're not accessible. Then that also kind of leads people to feel isolated and less like a community in a safe environment.
Okay, last question, and we've got about 30 seconds left, is for you to talk about something else that's important to you and an issue that you'd like to get involved with or support if you get into office.
Yeah, that's very open-ended. But
Okay.
As someone who grew up in Richmond, someone who used to work within the city system with community centers, childcare, and education programming for kids, we have an incredible infrastructure here and programming for families. I would love to help push for more of that to make sure it's accessible to different cultural groups, to make sure that everyone is represented. I come from a mixed background of Ukrainian, Hong Kong, mainland Chinese, and Richmond has always felt like a home where I belong as someone who comes from all these different backgrounds, and that's what I want for everyone else here.
He's Keefer Pelech. He's running with Richmond Citizens for Council. Keefer, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jim.
And that does it for this edition of the Richmond Sentinel Spotlights on the candidates that are running in the next election, October 15th. Please educate yourself and vote on that day. For more details, and if you want to see more videos, please go to the Richmond Sentinel website. It's richmondsentinel.ca.